Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake is all go down. Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake is all go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter. Baby's got corrosion now. Corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Greetings and salutations here. What the hell happened there? What kind of bullshit? Sorry. Behind the scenes drama. Good morning. It's Friday, the last day of July, July 31st, in the year of our Lord, 2026. I'm your host, Uncle Warren. And more bad news for you today. Some good news for later today. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show. First off, Global Solidarity holding it down in the old YouTube chat there. Good to see you. It's at the time of this, so it's 12:56 a.m. It's already Saturday in Japan. They're always in the future, which is fine. Yeah. What is it? 82 degrees. It was so nice after the storms last week. We had like some nice 60, 70 degree mornings. And that was so good. And now it's creeping out. It's already what? It's 11:04 here now, and it's 82 degrees. Yeah. Yeah. So probably going to be another cooker today, but you know what? It's fine. We have lots of news to get to. Lots. This is a big fat daddy show. This is a John Holmes packed show, if you get my meaning. So we might as well get to it. So we start things off. Let me get this here. So, what is this so tiny? Here we go. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Hospitals see massive surge. Hey, Dingo, good to see you. Hospitals see massive surge in uninsured patients after GOP healthcare cuts. Shocking. Hey, that's what happens. You know, a lot of people who don't have insurance can't afford insurance. They still got to go to the emergency room. And, well, you know, months after congressional Republicans refused to extend enhanced subsidies for Americans who receive their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, hospitals across the U.S. are seeing a surge in uninsured patients seeking emergency medical care. According to a Thursday report in the New York Times, executives at large hospital systems have been raising alarms over the unexpectedly sharp rise in uninsured patients and the costs associated with treating them. Unexpectedly, read the room, guys and gals at the hospitals. With many uninsured patients unable to pay their hospital bills, the Times noted hospitals are seeing lost revenues amounting to hundreds of millions of dollars across the country's vast health system. Revenues. That's too bad. Oh, so sad. You know, you really shouldn't be making money off of sick people. That's highly immoral. Highly immoral. The Times linked this surge in uninsured patients directly to the Republican-controlled Congress, allowing more generous subsidies for plans purchased through the ACA to lapse at the end of 2025. Enrollment in the program has fallen by about 3 million people since last year. And just so you know, the Affordable Care Act was Romney Care. Just a reminder, that was a Republican insurance scam started by Mitt Romney in Massachusetts, and Obama said, "Hey, that sounds good to me. I'm a moderate Republican, so you know I might as well do that." What that tells me is that there are patients who are completely unable to pay, says Laura Kaiser, finally figuring shit out. Also, chief executive of Catholic nonprofit hospital group SSM Health, told the Times, "We're really crushing people who are desperately trying to pay their bills." Executives at Universal Health Services, a for-profit hospital operator, said during an earnings call on Tuesday that the losses they expect to incur from treating uninsured patients has been significantly higher than their initial projects. As reported by Healthcare Dive on Wednesday, UHS had initially projected that some patients who dropped the coverage provided by the ACA would find another way to get health insurance. However, UHF CFO MOUSC Steve Filton told investigators that it felt like virtually everyone who lost their exchange coverage became an uninsured patient. Wow. How about that? UHS is hardly alone in suffering losses due to lapsed ACA subsidies, as Axios reported on Tuesday. Hey, V, what's going on? Good to see you. As Axios reported on Tuesday that HCA Healthcare, the largest for-profit hospital chain in the U.S., is projecting a $400 million hit to revenue that is tied partially to an influx of uninsured patients. I got an idea for that. How about universal health care? How about the government just pays for everybody's health care? We can afford it. If we can afford $1.15 trillion in the military, we can definitely afford that. What's up, Laine? Good morning to you. HCA CEO Sam Hazen said the increase in uninsured patients was a direct consequence of the GOP's refusal to extend the ACA subsidies. The effects, as expected, were that many people became uninsured and still needed emergency care from hospitals, Hazen said. As we look at the first half of the year, our expectations proved accurate, although the impact was greater than our estimates. An increase in uninsured patients is bad for both hospitals' finances and patients themselves. Yeah, we really should their overall health as a consequence of having undiagnosed conditions and a lower likelihood of receiving preventative and chronic disease management care. When they are hospitalized, uninsured people receive fewer diagnostic and therapeutic services and also have higher mortality rates than those with insurance, right? And that's probably by design. John Kemper. Hello, my friend. What's up, Chuck? Good to see you. But how are we going to pay for it? No. Exactly. This emphasis on defending a nation that has Mexico and Canada at its borders and two oceans chock full of submarines and ships. Yeah, you really need to worry about that. What's up, Willie? Good to see you. What's up, gang? I know you wrote gang, but I know you meant gang. But yeah, that's why, you know, the ACA was such a fucking disappointment, because it was just more insurance. Well, it's more affordable insurance. You know, you can, you know, this America, we're capitalists. The Democrats, Republicans, that we agree on, you know, fucking psychos. Woo, we still here? I've been having this weird nasal thing, so. Going to be a lot of that, unfortunately. So yeah, and that's always going to piss me off, that there's all these other countries that do universal health care for their people. And it's not like we can't. It's just we won't as the country. So we'll see. Bootstraps, pull yourself up by them if you can afford them. UK National Health Service or Cuban-style socialized. But yeah. And that's the thing. They say in the article, well, if these people would have come in sooner, a lot of these horrible things that they have could have been prevented. Well, they can't even afford preventative medicine because it's too fucking expensive. It's so goddamn stupid. So silly conservatives hate Obamacare but like their ACA. Yeah, no. Sorry. Meanwhile, the Trump administration argues even terminally ill patients shouldn't be exempt from Medicaid work requirements. Yes, we know you're dying, you're on your deathbed, you're in hospice, but we're going to need you at that Chili's waiting tables, okay? A federal judge on Thursday denied a request by more than 24 Democratic states to halt a Trump administration policy announced last month that would require Medicaid recipients with terminal diseases to prove they are too sick to work in order to be exempt from new work requirements that go into effect this coming January, while introducing over $1 trillion in tax cuts for the wealthiest 1% of Americans. Yeah, how about that? Last year's massive GOP tax and budget bill also imposed new 80-hour-per-month work requirements that states must implement for Medicaid expansion recipients who receive government-subsidized insurance coverage at or below 138% of the poverty line. The law specified that those who are medically frail or otherwise have special medical needs are excluded from the work requirement, and specifically listed people with a serious or complex medical condition, but it remained unclear what exact conditions met these criteria. How about if you're in a coma? If you're in a coma, do you still have to work? You can work from home, right? Earlier this month, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, introduced a new rule stating that even if a person receives a terminal diagnosis for a disease like cancer, HIV, AIDS, or Parkinson's, that is still not enough for them to be exempt from the work requirements. Beginning January 1st, 2028, it says they must also demonstrate to states that their condition significantly impairs their ability to meet the work requirement. Democratic attorneys general in 25 states and the District of Columbia filed a preliminary injunction over the rule late last month, arguing that CMS had rewritten the law to introduce a vague and needlessly restrictive new hurdle that vulnerable people will face in obtaining desperately needed care. This is one of those cases where it's really hard to overstate how dire the consequences could be. North Carolina's Democratic Attorney General Jeff Jackson told Politico, "You're going to have 50 states doing 50 different things, and we're all going to have to create a whole new bureaucracy. You're talking about a lot more paperwork, more evaluations, more doctor visits, and a lot more work for doctors themselves." The Democratic AGs argued that implementation of the work requirement should be paused because they lack the staff or capacity to meet the timeline set by CMS, which requires states to communicate to enrollees how they'll be affected by the changes by the end of August. U.S. District Judge Richard Stearns on Thursday denied their initial request to immediately halt the implementation of the requirements while the lawsuit proceeds, but also did not rule on the lawsuit's merits, which are scheduled to be decided before the requirements go into effect on January 1st. Several medical associations, including the American Medical Association, the American College of Physicians, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, have come out against the rule, arguing that it would have dire consequences for people who suffer from severe illness. One of the most significant factors in whether someone survives a cancer diagnosis is whether they have health insurance coverage, Lisa Lacasse, president of the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, explained in June. The new restrictions link the definition of medical frailty to a person's ability to work, she continued. This would mean cancer patients and survivors who are suffering from debilitating side effects of the disease or treatment would have to officially prove they can't work in a process that is likely to be difficult and take a long time, and definitely would be draconian. The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, has projected that over the coming decade, changes to healthcare policy introduced by Republicans would increase the number of uninsured Americans by about 11.8 million. Around 5.7 million of them are projected to be Medicaid recipients who either do not meet the 80-hour work requirements or are otherwise eligible but tripped up by one of the newly imposed paperwork hurdles. Taya Graham and Stephan Janis argued earlier this week in a piece for the Real News Network that eligible people losing coverage is not an unfortunate side effect of the law, but a goal of the Republicans who passed it, who sought a way to thin the ranks of those who qualify for Medicaid without having to take the politically unpopular step of actually clawing back benefits. Yes, the old let's jump through some hoops, or you jump through some hoops kind of situation. They wrote that what has happened to recipients of SNAP illustrates how burdensome these new requirements may become. As the New York Times reported earlier this month, in Arizona, 440,000 people have already been dropped from SNAP after it enacted a formidable regime of paperwork for low-income recipients to prove eligibility, including requiring some people with panhandling income to obtain documentation from donors who drop them a buck on the street. You got to get a receipt. You got to get some... Fucking stupid. If this is what people receiving SNAP benefits have been subjected to, imagine what's going to happen to people who will need to navigate the new Medicaid requirements while struggling with a debilitating or terminal illness, they wrote. Medical issues are a leading cause of bankruptcy in the U.S. According to one study, over 4 in 10 cancer patients over 50 had depleted all their assets within 2 years of diagnosis. Melanie D'Arrigo, a campaigner for single-payer healthcare in New York, said that Trumpy cut cancer research, cut healthcare, and with new Medicaid restrictions wants to make sure Americans continue to work as they go broke battling cancer. Meanwhile, as we said, the military gets $1.15 trillion, and the top 1% get tax cuts. Why are we not in the streets shutting it down? I don't mean these virtue signaling parades like, no kings, Trump's so bad, fan myself. I mean like shutting shit down. The railroads, the airports, shipping, shut it down. Shut down capitalism. We've seen enough. Let's shut it down. Otherwise, we're all going to be dead because we don't have insurance or can't afford the shit, and that's what they want. I've seen a lot. This is all over Rumble. I've seen like all these fucking creepy pundit shows on Rumble, and we are on Rumble, by the way. So, hello to my Rumble viewers. You know, the good ones. Talking about Anthony Fauci. I only bring this up because this is news. So Florida to investigate Fauci after Senate hearing. There he is. Look at it. He said, I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. I don't know who that is. Former coronavirus czar and Alfred E. Newman from the future, Dr. Anthony Fauci is facing a state investigation after declining to answer questions during a U.S. Senate hearing on the origins of COVID-19 and the government's handling of the pandemic. Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier, that doesn't sound German, announced the probe after Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination 111 times on Wednesday. Fauci's lack of candor to Congress is unbelievable. My office is launching an investigation into Dr. Fauci. It's past time we get the truth of what happened during COVID, Uthmeier wrote on the tweeters. That's right. He's also former AIDS czar. There's no love lost in the people in the AIDS community for him. Senator Rand Paul, who led the hearing, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis argued that Fauci had no legal basis to invoke the Fifth Amendment because former President Joe Biden, when he was awake, had granted him a blanket pardon covering potential federal offenses. It's like, why would... Somebody made a good point on the tweeters the other day. They said, why would you pardon someone if they didn't do anything wrong? Potential federal offenses. That's interesting. Fauci justified his actions by citing what he described as Paul's obvious obsession with his prosecution. Both Paul and DeSantis called for Fauci to be held in contempt of Congress, a formal finding that a witness has obstructed a congressional investigation. DeSantis also said that the former White House medical advisor could face legal action at the state or local level, noting that Biden's pardon applies only to potential federal crimes. Republican Senator and yard gnome Ted Cruz called for Fauci to face criminal charges following the hearing. Speaking to Fox News Digital on Wednesday, the Texas lawmaker called the former White House medical advisor the most damaging bureaucrat in the history of America and said he should go to jail. The investigation comes after years of clashes between Florida officials and Fauci over the federal COVID response. Under DeSantis, the Republican-run state became one of the leading critics of lockdowns, mask mandates, and vaccine policies promoted during the pandemic. Yes, indeed. Naybones. What's up, Naybones? Good to see you. Yeah, the people on Rumble just did all these creatures are just going. I mean, yeah, he needs to be gone after, but they're just using it for clickbait. You know, it's like nothing's going to happen to this guy. He's protected. Trump already said that the pardons and stuff were going to stick. He wasn't going to do anything about it. Anybody who thinks the Democrats and Republicans are different, you are out of your fucking tree. Oh, Kneebone. Oh, okay. Look at you, fancy. I wish I don't have the fancy music on this show. Yes, I like to be corrected when it comes to people's names. So, Kneebone, okay. All right, fine. My apologies. Speaking of dystopian shit, Missouri. Let's go down to Missouri. Missouri proposal would create nation's toughest standard for citizen-led constitutional amendments. Aw, you want some shit done in your state, and you're a citizen there. Good luck with that. Over the past several years, Missouri voters have amended the state constitution to create abortion rights, legalize marijuana and sports betting, and expand Medicaid health care coverage for low-income adults. None of those initiatives would have passed under a ballot measure getting decided by voters, I guess, this coming Tuesday. Missouri's proposed Amendment 4 would make it significantly harder to amend the Constitution by requiring citizen initiatives to pass in all 8 of the state's diverse congressional districts instead of by a traditional simple statewide majority. No other state has such a high standard or has even asked voters to consider this. And Missouri, of course, like most other states or all other states, is gerrymandered to the hilt. So those Republican districts are going to be like, nah, we're not going to do this. This is a first of its kind, said Kelly Hall, executive director of the Fairness Project, a national group that backs progressive ballot initiatives like the ones Missouri Republican lawmakers are hoping to quelch. It would be nearly impossible for citizens to participate meaningfully in any sort of direct democracy, said Hall, who believes other states could try to copy Missouri's proposal. Ah, Missouri, the South Carolina of the Midwest. Lawmakers seek to rein in citizen initiatives, so the Missouri proposal is the culmination of years of attempts by lawmakers in numerous states to raise the bar for citizen-initiated petitions. You know, because fuck the citizens, right? Fuck them and your petitions. To qualify for the ballot and win voter approval, some elected officials contend lawmaking is best left to themselves. the people's representatives, because citizen initiatives lack the vetting that comes from the multi-step legislative process of public hearings, debates, revisions, and don't forget lobbyists and that little, that cash under the table that they get. And the promises of jobs afterwards, too. We got to put that in there, too. The effort to curtail citizen initiatives on state ballots comes as Trumpy pushes for greater restrictions on who can vote and how ballots are cast, asserting the integrity of elections is at stake. Missouri's measure fits into the larger narrative and story around what the future of democracy looks like in the U.S., said Chris Melody Fields Figueredo. Too many names. Executive Director of the Ballot Initiative Strategy Center, or BISC, which supports progressive ballot measures. About 1/3 of U.S. states allow people to bypass their legislatures by gathering signatures to place proposed constitutional amendments on the ballot. Several others allow the process for proposed laws. In most of those states, a simple majority of voters is all that's needed to approve constitutional amendments. Colorado requires a 55% vote for most measures, and Florida a 60% vote. What's up, P-Stuff? Good to see you. Voters in recent years rejected ballot measures to raise the approval threshold for amendments in Arkansas, Ohio, and South Dakota. Still, South Dakota lawmakers have placed a proposal for a 60% approval threshold on the November ballot. North Dakota voters will consider a similar measure, and Utah voters will decide on a 60% requirement for citizen-initiated tax increases. Missouri's proposal would apply only to citizen initiatives. Constitutional amendments proposed by the legislature would still need only a statewide majority. No other state has a dual standard like that. Republican State Representative Ed Lewis, who sponsored Missouri's measure, said he wants to ensure people in all parts of the state have their voices heard. He said activists funded by out-of-state interest groups have run up large majorities in St. Louis and Kansas City to pass controversial initiatives that failed throughout most of the rest of Missouri. The abortion, marijuana, sports betting, and Medicaid initiatives all were placed on the ballot by petitions between 2020 and 2024 after lawmakers declined to act, all passed with 53% or less of the statewide vote. Requiring 50% in each of our congressional districts is not a difficult barrier for anything that has a consensus, Lewis said, but it is a difficult barrier for either a very conservative or a very liberal initiative petition, he said. If you're going to change the Constitution, shouldn't it be broadly accepted? Lewis asked rhetorically. Hey, you could stop gerrymandering those districts. Maybe that would make things a little more fair, too. Fucking pot calling the kettle black there. Amendments to the U.S. Constitution require ratification by 3/4 of the states. Critics say Missouri's proposed amendment could undercut consensus because an initiative backed by large margins in 7 congressional districts would still fail if opposed by a slim margin in just one district. Exactly. It's an astonishing level of unfairness, and it crushes our notion of one person, one vote, and majority rule, which we learned about in school as kids, said Scott Charton, a spokesperson for the Missouri Realtors campaign committees, which have backed previous initiatives. Though Amendment 4 was referred to the ballot by Republican lawmakers, people at a recent Republican club meeting in Jefferson City were divided about whether to make it harder for citizens to amend the state constitution. Rick Kolb says he supports the tougher standards. Our country was founded as a republic, not a democracy, he said. When initiatives appear on the ballot, everybody votes on these things that they haven't put any thought into. But Jim Bryan said he opposes the amendment, fearing it could allow voters in St. Louis or Kansas City to thwart measures supported by the rest of the state. The popular vote is what I want, he says. A new petition could fortify citizen initiatives. Regardless of the outcome, Tuesday's vote may not be the last on Missouri's citizen initiatives. And there's plenty more here. But you pretty much get the gist. Ballot initiatives are very important because, especially in this day and age with all our politicians bought and paid for, well, not all of them are bought. A pretty good amount of them are. This is the only way that citizens can actually fight back with these things. You see polls about people wanting 60, 70% of something on a certain issue, and their representatives do not follow that. That's the problem. The representatives are not doing the will of the people. They haven't been for quite some time. So when you see something like this, it's like, oh, well, you know, you want to play lawmaker, Mr. Citizen. Well, it's not being, you're not trying to make laws. You're trying to create a better life for yourselves. And if the majority of the people agree that they want that in your state, you should probably give it to them. And I would say for those that are doing these ballot initiatives, vote these criminals out. I mean, you're not going to vote your way out of things, but you need to promote people that are actually not corrupt. And I know that's like trying to find a needle in the haystack, but you know, you got to get rid of the criminals first. Yeah, I know. AIPAC. Yeah, exactly. Vote no, AIPAC affiliated politicians. Not just AIPAC, too. Big oil, big pharma, whoever has an agenda and is a giant corporation. Meanwhile, in New York sues prediction market platform Kalshi, alleging illegal gambling operation. Uh-oh. So New York officials sued prediction market platform Kalshi today, calling it an illegal, unlicensed gambling operation as the state seeks to halt its operations and force the company to forfeit its profits. New York joins a growing number of states filing lawsuits against Kalshi and other companies in a dispute with Trumpy's administration over who regulates the fast-growing prediction market. Kalshi and other platforms argue they are federally licensed and regulated, and states have no authority to govern them. It's sad to see this type of political theater from the leadership in our own state. Elizabeth Diana, also known as Elizabeth Dirty Diana. Remember that Michael Jackson song? Dirty Diana. Ha. A spokesperson for the New York-based Kalshi said in a statement, states can't just shut down a federally licensed exchange. This would also hurt New Yorkers who would be driven offshore. We love New York. We love New Yorkers, and New Yorkers love our product. Oh, they'd have to gamble somewhere else. Oh, that's too bad. New York Governor Kathy Hochul and Attorney General Letitia James, both Democrats, announced a lawsuit filed in state Supreme Court in Manhattan. New York's gambling laws protect children from underage betting and help combat gambling addiction, James said in a statement. No matter what they call themselves, prediction markets like Kalshi are gambling platforms, plain and simple. By ignoring our laws, Kalshi is running an illegal operation and harming New Yorkers in the process. James's office is requesting that Kalshi be ordered to forfeit all illegal gains, pay restitution to consumers who were harmed, and pay fines equal to 3 times the company's gains. And this is all well and good, but you have one of the biggest casinos in your state. It's called Wall Street. And you ain't doing dick about Wall Street. I'm not protecting Kalshi or defending them here, obviously. I don't like any of these things. But to say that, oh, that's gambling, and not to say that the stock market isn't gambling, please. But you can invest, you can help people. Yeah, you can help people make money. Meanwhile, you're going to the hospital and going broke because of it. Fuck that. A couple of gun stories for you. If you like guns, pew pew. Colin Gray, who gave his son the gun used in Georgia school shooting, is sentenced to 15 years. Ooh, what's that? Nobody asked for that. Go away. I hate it when it does shit like that. A man who gave his son the gun he used to kill 2 students and 2 teachers at Appalachia High School in Georgia was sentenced yesterday to 15 years in prison. Colin Gray's sentencing comes days after his son Colt Gray was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole in the September 4th, 2024 shooting at the school 45 miles northeast of Atlanta. Colt Gray, 16, had pleaded guilty to murder and other charges. Judge Nicholas Prim, who also sentenced Colt Gray, was blunt in addressing the elder Gray. It's clear you failed as a parent, but he said punishing crimes of negligence is particularly difficult because there was no intent to commit a crime. My heart aches for everyone that was there that day, for all of you that have been impacted by it, but the law requires that I set aside emotion. I don't get to sentence with passion. I have the nearly impossible task of sentencing you without passion, despite the immeasurable heartache that you caused. Gray is one of a handful of American parents who have been criminally charged after their children were accused in shootings. A jury in March found Colin Gray guilty of second-degree murder in the deaths of two 14-year-old students, Mason Schermerhorn and Christian Angulo. Georgia law defines second-degree murder as causing the death of a child by committing the crime of cruelty to children. Gray was also found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the killings of teachers Richard Aspinwall and Christina Irimi. I believe so. So yeah, you could say, well, I bought my son or daughter a car and they drove they drove drunk and they killed somebody, so do I got to go to jail because I bought them a car? The difference between cars and guns is this. Cars are not designed to kill people. They're not designed to shoot and cause damage, right? The cars are vehicles that you transport yourself and others in. Maybe you go get groceries or something like that. Yes, you can kill somebody in a car if you're negligent or you're drunk driving. A gun is used to shoot people. It's not a tool. You can use it to shoot things to break them apart, but that's not what it's designed for. It is designed specifically to cause harm, and particularly to other people. Now, I'm not one of these people that's like, well, everybody should get their guns taken away or whatever. I think you should have a more concerted effort to keep the gun out of certain people's hands that are psycho and have stated that they want to murder people. In this case, you have a father who gave his son a gun, and then the kid, used it to shoot people. Did the father know about the kid's underlying mental deficiencies? Who knows? But the point is, you're not giving somebody, when you give somebody a car, you expect them to drive around, right? Or drive somewhere. When you give somebody a gun, you expect them to use it to protect themselves, but in protecting yourself, you're harming another person, and you have to keep that in mind. So, was this guy a shitty parent? Maybe. I don't know. We don't have free mental health care in this country. We should. Maybe if we did, you wouldn't see nearly as many of these, shootings that we have, right? I say this about abortion. If you want to get rid of abortion, give everybody free health care. There was a poll taken a few years back that said that 70% of women who had abortions said they probably wouldn't have had abortions if they had free medical care to take care of the child. It all boils down to that. And guess what? We don't have free medical care or free mental health care. And you're just going to see more of this shit happening. So, all right, off the soapbox. Let's come back here to Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson signs executive order on procurement standards for guns. Now, this is for people. This is for the police, I believe. Mayor Brandon Johnson signed a new order Wednesday strengthening the city's procurement standards for firearms, firearm accessories, and ammunition purchased for the Chicago Police Department and other safety departments. Advocacy group Brady United Against Gun Violence found some law enforcement agencies across the country have purchased firearms from unvetted gun dealers. This new order ensures that public dollars support lawful business practices by developing stronger procurement standards for firearm-related purchases within 90 days. Dealers will be required to disclose licensing and regulatory compliance information to prevent firearm trafficking, straw purchasing, and theft. We have more gun dealers in America than McDonald's, Starbucks, and Walmart combined. Okay, 5 of them, and we know this from ATF research, are responsible for 90% of crime guns. Right, so what does that imply? What that's implying is that dealers are knowingly selling, and Brady has litigated these cases for 30 years, including on behalf of police officers who were shot in the line of duty by these crime guns in Chicago, Chris Brown with Brady United said. Mayor Johnson said the city is looking into one specific dealer which may have sold unvetted guns to the city of Chicago. There's one that we're keeping our eye on. This is a contract that was settled prior to me arriving, so we're keeping an eye on that. That's why my remarks that also included renewal. He hopes this new order will help tighten laws to prevent that from happening in the future. Okay, very good. Guns, right? Why do you have guns? Most, hunters have guns because they go hunt. They go hunt food. Most times now, people don't hunt for food. They hunt for trophies. That's that sort of thing. But when I was a kid, I was never a deer hunter. I like to take pictures of deer. I didn't like to shoot them. But my cousins would go deer hunting, and then they would bring us, steaks from it, right? They would bring us meat. And we had a vegetable garden. We'd give them, vegetables, socialism, as it were, giving away shit and not expecting something in return. But you see more people. I know people who said that have said in their whole life that I don't like guns. I don't want anything to do with guns. And they see what's happening in the United States now. They see the Gestapo, ICE, people going after citizens and people who are legally here, wearing masks, no insignia, their body cams turned off, and their only punishment is getting more training. I understand why people would be wanting to get guns. These people that said they wouldn't get guns, now they're thinking about it, which is a big shift. And it's scary to see that people want more guns now. It's a sign of the times, really. Can't blame the guns. You have to blame the person who pulls the trigger, obviously. So, speaking of ICE and those criminals, appeals court rejects the Trump administration's expansion of mandatory detention for immigrants. The Trump administration cannot deny immigrants detained inside the U.S. a chance for release on bond, a federal appeals court ruled yesterday. The 2-1 decision by the San Francisco-based Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, with a judge appointed by Trumpy in the majority, deepened a split between federal appeals courts over the administration's mandatory detention policy. 4 other appeals courts have also rejected it, while the 5th Circuit in New Orleans and 8th Circuit in St. Louis have sided with the Trump administration. The expanding circuit split increases the likelihood that the U.S. Supreme Court will eventually take up the issue. An email to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for comment was not immediately returned. Under previous administrations, most non-citizens without a criminal record who were arrested inside the U.S. were allowed to seek a bond hearing while their immigration cases were pending. Mandatory detention was generally reserved for people arrested at the border. Last July, immigration officials issued guidance expanding mandatory detention to immigrants in the U.S. interior. The move, part of the administration's mass deportation campaign, prompted a deluge of federal lawsuits by immigrants seeking release from custody. Some federal judges who ordered bond hearings blasted the administration for repeatedly violating their orders. The Trump administration has argued that Congress changed immigration law in 1996 to allow mandatory detention beyond the border, but previous administrations didn't enforce that provision. Writing for the majority in Thursday's ruling, Ninth U.S. Circuit Judge Daniel Bress rejected that argument. Although no reading of the complicated and interrelated textual, can't talk, provisions at issue here is without some shortcomings. The historical understanding of the statute is the better one, Bress, a Trump appointee, wrote. He was joined by Judge M. Margaret McCune, who was appointed by Bill Clinton. Judge Carlos Bea, who was appointed by George W. Bush, dissented, saying the text and purpose of an amendment Congress approved in 1996 support the Trump administration's reading. Yeah, you got to change those laws. And guess what? They're not going to change those laws. They're not even going to defund ICE, much less get rid of it. These Democrats won't anyway. Scaredy cats. Let's go to another illegal operation, which is the war on Iran. Rescuers search for survivors on Keshem Island after U.S. kills toddler and parents. Taking a page out of the IDF's playbook. Although, in Vietnam, they did their fair share of killing children, women, innocent people. Footage released by Iranian state broadcaster IRIB on Thursday showed rescue teams clearing rubble as they search for victims in the Cha Tango neighborhood of Keshem Island in Hormozgan province following a U.S. strike. The attack hit a civilian home, killing 3 members of the same family, a father, a mother, and their 2-year-old child. Oh, that 2-year-old child was IRGC, or it's gonna be. 2 surviving family members, aged 7 and 9, were taken to a medical center for further treatment, according to Iranian officials. The family were among those killed in a large-scale U.S. assault across Iran overnight on Thursday, launched in retaliation for an Iranian missile strike on a Jordanian-American base. Trump had earlier vowed to beat the fucking shit out of Iran following the attack on Muwafaq Salti Air Base in northern Jordan. The U.S. military has a track record of killing Iranian children and other civilians in the war it launched alongside Israel on February 28th. Its opening attack of the conflict was a double-tap cruise missile attack on a school in Manab, South Iran, which killed at least 155 people, most of them school children. And then CENTCOM and their other propagandists were like, "Oh no, Iran did that to themselves. See, the missile went up and they went," and then later they said, "Yeah, it was poor intelligence. We did it." And some people on Facebook were like, "See, Iran did it." It's like, no, they didn't, stupid. You're listening to pundits, not reading the news. In an apparent response to the U.S. attack, Tehran again targeted U.S. interests in Jordan on Thursday. Explosions were reportedly heard at the Muwafaq Salti base, although Middle East Eye, this outfit here, could not verify the reports. A Jordanian army spokesperson said 5 missiles fired from Iran had been detected, intercepted, and shot down. U.S. officials and regional allies had previously claimed to have intercepted Iranian missiles that were later found to have reached their targets. Also on Thursday, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, warned that countries aiding the U.S. would become targets of Tehran's retaliatory attacks. Countries involved in aiding the aggressor will receive a harsh response if they do not correct their behavior, the statement read. Iran has targeted U.S. interests in Gulf states and Jordan throughout the war. Yeah, so gonna beat the shit out of them. God. Yeah. Meanwhile, gas prices are up. I mean, aside from the murdering of children, which should be the top priority in your thinking on this, the gas prices going up and all these other prices and stuff going up too. So even if you don't give a shit about kids, at least you should give a shit about the economy. Yeah, we're gonna beat the shit out of them like they're a 5-year-old child. Yeah, CENTCOM is Zio corrupted, definitely. The United States is Israel's bitch. I know they said, well, all they got to do is stop funding Israel. No, they don't need to fund Israel anymore. They are running the show. They run our politicians on the national and on the state levels. See Michigan, see Kentucky. Yeah. Like I said, You ain't going to vote your way out of this. We got to shut shit down. Shut her down. And Saudi Arabia needs to shut the fuck up too. They're good. The Yemenis are like, bitch. And Iraq too. So Iraqi armed group issues deadline to government, warns of retaliation following Saudi U.S. strikes. Now this isn't the Iraqi government. This is the Iraqi resistance. Much like Hezbollah is the resistance in Lebanon and not the Lebanese government. The Islamic resistance in Iraq on Wednesday denied involvement in reported attacks targeting Saudi Arabia and accused the U.S. of carrying out what it described as an attack on a procession serving pilgrims traveling to the shrine of Imam Hussein in Karbala. In a statement, the group accused Saudi Arabia of supporting U.S. policies in the region and alleged that Riyadh had acted in coordination with Washington. It also rejected demands for its disarmament. Much like Hezbollah is. He's like, not taking our guns. The group said it had given Iraqi authorities until August 7th to respond to what it described as U.S. aggression. According to the statement, the deadline is intended to test the government's willingness to deter attacks and hold those responsible accountable. The group warned that retaliation against what it called the American enemy was inevitable and said any future response could target U.S. proxies in Saudi Arabia if circumstances required. And also stated that it would seek to avoid disrupting the Arba'een pilgrimage and would prioritize the safety of Shia pilgrims visiting the shrine of Imam Hussein. The statement followed an announcement by the Saudi Ministry of Defense made in coordination with propaganda mouthpiece CENTCOM that Saudi and U.S. forces had carried out targeted strikes against what they described as Iranian-backed militias in Iraq in response to attacks on Saudi oil facilities. Saudi Arabia said it was acting in self-defense. Have you heard that before? We have the right to defend ourselves. Under Article 51 of the UN Charter, and stressed that it did not seek further escalation. Iran denied responsibility for the attacks on Saudi facilities and warned that attributing actions against U.S. interests in Tehran would be a miscalculation. The latest exchange comes amid heightened regional tensions after Trump announced that the ceasefire with Iran was no longer in effect, raising concerns about a broader escalation across the U.S., across the Gulf region, rather. So you're starting. So now here are your players, right? You got the U.S. in there. You have Israel, Iran. Those are the big three. Now you have Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Yemen. This is a increasingly regional conflict that's going on, right? I don't do it justice with analysis. I suggest checking out the Cradle, thecradle.co, I believe is the website. They do a lot better analyses because they're actually over there, or at least some of them are witnessing this firsthand. So I'm not an analysis, but I do put the anal in analysis. That was probably uncalled for. How's everybody doing? Everybody good? Orange whip? Delicious. So last week we reported that the ICC's Karim Khan was in the process of being voted out of the, or being removed from the ICC. We didn't have the results then, but it's been confirmed now later that day that did happen. So U.S. prosecutor who helped ICC's Karim Khan seek Israeli arrest warrants breaks her silence. Okay, John, that's fine. If you guys are just lurking, that's fine too. It's kind of hard. I can kind of catch out of the corner of my eye if I see a new comment or something. But if you're not commenting, that's fine. I'm not getting my feelings hurt. Ooh, did not want to do that. So Brenda Hollis, the U.S. prosecutor who supervised the ICC team that built the war crimes cases against Israel and Hamas leaders, has defended Karim Khan's handling of the Palestine investigation, rejecting the Israeli claim that the arrest warrant applications were rushed to distract from misconduct allegations, basically saying, oh yeah, well, you know, they accused of all these war crimes and stuff like that and crimes against humanity because, you know, he had this thing going on, this sexual conduct thing. You you always synthesize anal and analist. You're so dirty. I love it. Damn it. Following Khan's removal by the Court's Assembly of State Parties, or ASP, the snake, last Friday, Hollis said that regardless of how you assess the removal of Karim, it should not be allowed to be conflated with the request for arrest warrants for Hamas and Israeli leaders. And technically, the Hamas part of that is kind of no more, because I think most of them, if not all of them, are dead. Let it be clear to all that he dealt with the situation in Palestine in accordance with his mandate, she wrote in a post on LinkedIn. Really? People write posts on LinkedIn? I thought that was just... the requests for arrest warrants were not hurried, last-minute submissions. They were the result of ongoing investigations. They were based on law and sufficient credible evidence and finalized after thorough internal and external review. Hollis said she was in a position to know because she had run the team that prepared them. I was in charge of the team of outstanding professionals who impartially gathered and analyzed the evidence within the ICC legal framework and prepared the requests, she wrote. I took an active part in that process and recommended to Karim that he file those requests with the pretrial chamber because the law and evidence and office of the prosecutor mandate demanded it. Hollis was referring to the court's panel of 3 judges, which in November 2024 issued warrants on the prosecutor's application, charging Israeli Prime Minister and psychopath Benjamin Netanyahu and then Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, along with 3 Hamas leaders with war crimes and crimes against humanity committed during the war in Gaza since October 2023. Hollis also credited Khan with restructuring the office of the prosecutor, saying he had brought investigators, analysts, and prosecutors together into a unified team, enhancing efficiency, and had introduced a much-needed sense of urgency to its work. Those important refinements should not be overshadowed by the ASP decision, she wrote. Hollis joined the ICC in 2022 as principal trial lawyer leading its Ukraine investigation, a team whose work produced the March 2023 arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin over the unlawful deportation of Ukrainian children. She went on to oversee the Palestine investigation alongside British barrister Andrew Cayley until the applications were filed in May 2024. Before joining the ICC, she was chief prosecutor of the Special Court for Sierra Leone, where she led the trial and appeal of former Liberian President Charles Taylor, and previously worked on the Tadic and Furunzia cases, I know I butchered that, at the tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. She served 22 years in the U.S. Air Force, retiring as a colonel. Her intervention challenges a claim Israeli officials have made since the allegations against Khan surfaced that he sought the warrants to deflect from them. Netanyahu on Sunday welcomes Khan's removal as a step that exposes the truth, that's in quotes, alleging that the former prosecutor sought arrest warrants against him and former Defense Minister Gallant to divert attention from misconduct allegations against himself, a claim widely debunked. According to a Middle East Eye investigation, the prosecutor's decision to apply for warrants was made 6 weeks before the allegations against him were made, and the application for the warrants was submitted only after the first internal investigation into the harassment accusations had been open and closed. Khan's dismissal has come amid questions and criticism about the ASP Bureau's handling of the investigation, including concerns by Palestinian groups that the process has been politicized after the opinion of the judges' panel, which unanimously found that no wrongdoing had been established, was disregarded by Bureau member states. Yeah. And for those who may not know, the person that's going to take Khan's place, very friendly with Israel. Shocking. I know you're shocked. I'm shocked as well. But here we are. So the late ladybug, Lindsey Graham, and this is going to be sky blue, water wet kind of obvious news. But Lindsey Graham worked alongside Netanyahu to stall ICC arrest warrants. There he is right there. All that camera person had to do is just shove him. And then well, at least, anyway. The late ladybird, Lindsey Graham, secretly collaborated with BB to leverage sexual misconduct allegations against the recently removed ICC chief, Karim Khan, in an effort to delay arrest warrants for Netanyahu and his band of misfits, according to the Times, on July 28th. The exchanges are contained in roughly 400 hours of recordings reviewed by the New York Times, made by British filmmaker Alex Holder, who trailed Graham for a planned documentary titled Lindsey's Game. Graham, who died earlier this month at 71, also worked with Netanyahu to assemble a bipartisan group of lawmakers against the ICC investigation into the Israeli prime minister. There's your key word right there. Bipartisan group of lawmakers. Democrats, Republicans, they're all the same. They just wear different clothes and say different things, but they do the same shit. Holder recorded both calls on October 29, 2024, days ahead of the U.S. presidential election. During the first call captured on video, Netanyahu told Graham that a 3-judge panel would rule very soon on whether to issue his arrest warrant, and pointed to the sexual misconduct allegations against Khan as leverage, saying the great cloud that they shed could push the decision back. He argued that the court could be asked to freeze any action pending a review, insisting that this cloud or this stain has to be removed first, and told Graham to write a letter with other senators. Graham offered up Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, as the perfect person to sign. Yes, we all know Mike Johnson is a tool and a puppet. Netanyahu asked whether Johnson could bring Democrats on board, and Graham said he would try for a bipartisan approach. The second call, recorded later the same day as audio only, captured Graham alone telling Netanyahu, "We got them both." A reference to Democratic Senators Richard Blumenthal and Ben Cardin, who, according to the New York Times, who had agreed to sign and asked Netanyahu to send over whatever he wanted the letter to say. Blumenthal. Israeli's I-24 News reported on July 25th that Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar oversaw a dedicated task force and employed intensive diplomatic efforts aimed at securing Khan's removal from office. Brenda Hollis, the U.S. prosecutor who supervised the ICC team, we just told you about her, that built the war crimes cases against Israel and Hamas leaders, defended Khan's handling, we told you about that, and rejected the Israeli claim that the arrest warrant applications were rushed. We already told you about that. So Khan was first accused of sexual misconduct in May 2024. The claims were formally reported to the ICC's internal oversight mechanism shortly afterward, prompting an investigation that would eventually lead to a suspension in June 2026. On July 24th this year, 82 of the court's 125 member states voted to dismiss him, an unprecedented step critics and Khan supporters say was rushed after a panel of judicial experts unanimously cleared him. The political pressure had mounted since his May 2024 announcement that he was seeking arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant. Definite witch hunt there. And to be fair, whether Khan did these the sexual misconduct or whatever, I don't know. I'm not privy to that information. I'm not defending somebody that did do something like that. But I will tell you that Israel will use shit like that against you. So I don't know. Maybe if somebody did a deep dive into what Khan was actually accused of doing, maybe somebody has. I just haven't gotten that information. So we had told you about the NDAA and how these bought and paid for stooges for Israel in the United States wants to marry our military with Israel. Israel's racing to deepen U.S. integration amid collapsing public support. That's right. Nobody wants this shit. Israel is pursuing a long-term strategy to enmesh itself within the U.S. military, intelligence, and defense establishment, fearing that a collapse in U.S. public support for Israel could otherwise jeopardize billions in future U.S. aid, Capital and Empire reported on July 30th. Well, it's not so much the aid, it's the integration of the intelligence, data sharing, that sort of thing. According to a new U.S. intelligence assessment, Israeli officials believe the political fight over Israel in the U.S. is becoming harder to win and that the era of indefinitely securing billions of dollars in annual military aid is coming to an end. Yeah, I think that's what Bibi said. He knows that eventually this aid's going to end. That's why he's trying to get them embedded within the United States military. Israeli officials are therefore seeking ways to embed the Israeli military within the U.S. military in ways future administrations would struggle to unwind, according to an assessment described to Capital and Empire by U.S. officials. Currently, Israel receives military aid from the U.S. that must be approved annually through transparent votes by lawmakers in Congress and the Senate. But the collapse in public support in the U.S. for Israel following the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza that started in October 2023 has put such future U.S. military aid to Israel in jeopardy. The assessment, written primarily by the CIA, discusses expanding intelligence cooperation with Israel and hosting a permanent U.S. military base on Israeli territory, which I think that's what they're trying to do with this Board of Peace thing. I thought they were already going to do that. It says Israeli officials have been grooming prominent U.S. tech executives to build long-term political and financial support for the effort. Israel has been advancing this agenda since earlier this year, lobbying lawmakers to pass the $1.1 trillion National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, which includes Section 219, integrating U.S. military intelligence and the defense industrial base with the Israeli military. The House of Representatives passed a version of the bill on July 22nd. The bill now heads to the Senate, where it must be approved before it is sent to Trumpy for his signature. The vast majority of Democratic lawmakers in the House voted against the bill as public shows of support for Israel becoming a political liability. Yeah, used to be that if you didn't support Israel, you're out. And now it seems like if you do support Israel, not so much in Kentucky, where they're pretty brainwashed down there into thinking that Israel's, that's their territory. The Bible told me that. Yeah, okay. However, 6 Democrats, Henry Cuellar, he's always on the wrong side of shit. Don Davis, Jared Golden, Vicente Gonzalez, Adam Gray, and Marie Gluesenkamp Perez joined Republicans to vote for the bill just enough to allow it to pass. Congressman Thomas Massey of Kentucky, who lost in a Republican primary for re-election in May, in part due to the Israeli lobby, called Section 219 of the NDAA a betrayal of our sovereignty, which it exactly is. Yes. Whoa, where are you going? What the shit? Hashtag treason. There it is. Earlier this year, Bibi claimed he wanted to end Israel's reliance on U.S. military aid. However, the assessment states that the CIA believes that Netanyahu made such statements as part of a plan to replace highly unpopular foreign aid with deeper, longer-lasting forms of military and industrial integration, a.k.a. stuff that you don't vote on every year or at all. Or at least the one time. And then after that, that's it. From Israel's perspective, embedding the alliance more deeply within the U.S. national security apparatus would make it far more difficult for future administrations to pressure Israel by slowing or withholding arms transfers, according to Capital and Empire. During former U.S. President Joe Biden's term, Secretary of State Antony Blinken needed to take several emergency measures to ensure that U.S. bombs kept flowing to Israel as it perpetrated the genocide of Palestinians. Providing U.S. military aid to Israel as it committed war crimes in Gaza was not only unpopular among Biden's Democratic base, it was also illegal under U.S. law. What? Biden broke laws too? What? No, I said. Blinken moved ahead with the bomb shipments, which helped Israel's Air Force kill tens of thousands of children, despite public backlash. About 60% of U.S. adults now hold an unfavorable view of Israel, according to an April Pew Research Center survey. An Economist YouGov poll published on July 28th found that 49% of U.S. citizens said Netanyahu should be taken into custody if he sets foot on U.S. soil, which he has, and of course that didn't happen, while subject to an international criminal court arrest warrant, whereas only 27% said he should not be. Netanyahu visited the White House earlier this week, as we just said. If the NDAA is passed with Section 219 included, Israel will not risk future U.S. politicians buckling to public pressure to end the arms flow it needs to continue the genocide in Gaza and bombing and ethnic cleansing of southern Lebanon. According to the intelligence assessment, Israeli officials also want Israeli technology, intelligence, and weapon systems to be embedded within the U.S. military itself, making the U.S. increasingly reliant on Israel. The assessment says Israeli officials want to convince U.S. officials and lawmakers that Israel is a model ally whose relationship with the U.S. is mutually beneficial rather than a liability. According to some reports, Israel played a key role in dragging the U.S. into its current war with Iran. Israel is no longer participating directly in the war, which is highly unpopular in the U.S. and costing taxpayers some $2 billion a day. Meanwhile, you get no health care. Double treason. Yeah. That's why. So he's like, we don't want aid anymore. We don't need the United States aid anymore. It's like, no, you want it's like going from skin cancer to colon cancer, right? At least some skin cancers you can take off, right? But colon cancer, if you don't catch it in time, and just a reminder of the shitty things that Israel is doing. Israeli attacks in Gaza killed 8-year-old and 18-month-old as IDF continues constant ceasefire violations. This is Dave DeCamp over here at antiwarnews.com, or antiwar.com, I'm sorry. Separate Israeli attacks in Gaza on Thursday killed at least 2 children, the 8-year-old and 18-month-old, according to reports from the Strip, as the IDF continues its constant violations of the U.S.-backed ceasefire deal. In southern Gaza, an Israeli strike on a tent killed Ratil al-Balawi, an 8-year-old girl. Photos from Gaza show Ratil's mother, who was wounded in the attack, mourning her at the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. There she is right there. An Israeli airstrike on a home in Deir el-Balah, central Gaza, kills Zaid Mohammed Nafal, an 18-month-old boy. According to Dropsite News, Zaid was his mother's only surviving child after Israeli attacks killed her other 3 sons. The killing of Zaid and Ratil came over a month after a UN commission released a report that concluded the IDF has deliberately targeted children in Gaza and has continued to do so despite the ceasefire deal. The children were among at least 6 Palestinians killed by Israeli attacks across Gaza on Thursday. Israeli attacks also hit Gaza City, where at least 2 Palestinians were killed, and several others were wounded by a drone strike. Gaza's health ministry said in its daily update released about midday Gaza time that over the previous 24 hours, at least 4 people were killed by Israeli attacks. 1 Palestinian died of wounds sustained in a previous strike, and a body was recovered from the rubble, bringing the death toll since the so-called ceasefire deal was signed in October last year to 1,214. So, He said we only have money to murder. I know. Yeah. And there's still people supporting that. Remember, kids, 30 states have laws, not rules, laws, that you cannot boycott, divest, or sanction Israel. That includes the state of Illinois, too. So shame on you, Illinois, and these other 30 states that have these fucking laws. All you're doing is making it worse. But people are doing it anyway, so fuck them, right? Wesley! I know, you arrived just in time for some depressing Gaza news. Yeah, well, we had other depressing news before that, so don't worry. There's plenty. Yeah, it is unconstitutional. It goes against people's right to protest, which is First Amendment. That's the First Amendment. Yeah, a lot of these conservatives like, oh, you're taking away our Second Amendment rights. But you know, there's one before that, right, called the First Amendment. That doesn't seem to register with some of those people. They're just worried about, you're going to take away my guns. Yeah, well, you'll have your guns, but then you won't be able to say shit. How about that? And fuck India too. India delivered over 2,500 arms shipments to Israel during the Gaza genocide. What's up, CBC? Good to see you. India supplied at least 2,596 shipments of weapons, ammunition, and components to Israel between October 7th, 2023 and November 30th, 2025, despite knowing the substantial risk of contributing to Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, according to Amnesty International on July 30th. The investigation, titled Made in India, the Supply of Weapons and Ammunition to Israel, examined shipment-level trade data covering every transfer over that period. The consignments included at least 390,516 small arms parts for military-grade weapons, almost 565,000 parts of explosive ordnance such as drone warheads and artillery shell casing, and 298 military vehicle components, all delivered to large Israeli firms that supply the Israeli army directly. Amnesty's analysis excluded shipments that may have been destined for civilian use, as well as items likely used in anti-missile defense. Among the weaponry identified were machine gun components for arms deployed by Israeli forces in Gaza, 155mm high explosive artillery shells supplied to Elbit systems, and explosive warheads for the Sky Striker loitering munition similar to debris recovered in Khan Yunis. Companies owned and controlled by the Indian state are named, including Munitions India Limited, which produces high explosive artillery rounds. Others include PLR Systems, a joint venture with Israel Weapons Industries, and Alpha Elsec Defense and Aerospace Systems, a joint venture with Elbit Systems. The Israeli recipients include Elbit Systems, Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, and Israel Aerospace Industries. Amnesty found critical structural failures in India's arms transfer framework with no explicit requirement for human rights due diligence to prevent exported military goods from being used in violations of international humanitarian law, and insufficient transparency to make the export process accountable. India abstained from the vote adopting the arms trade treaty in April 2013 and has never acceded to it. Amnesty says accession is a vital first step toward bringing Indian export controls into line with international law on arms transfers. What's up, Ghost Start? Good to see you. Still no still no picture on your thing there. Sorry. That's all right. As long as you're here, that's all that matters. Amnesty Secretary General Agnes Callamard said the International Court of Justice orders recognizing a plausible risk of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza leave Indian authorities unable to claim ignorance of the risk carried by continued transfers. By knowingly allowing the transfer of arms to Israel, India stands in clear violation of its duty to prevent genocide under the Genocide Convention and its obligation to ensure respect for the Geneva Conventions, Callamard said. The arms transfers run alongside a political relationship both governments now boast openly. Modi and Netanyahu issued a joint statement in occupied Jerusalem on February 26, declaring a new phase in bilateral relations, elevating ties to what they termed a special strategic partnership for peace, innovation, and prosperity. Peace, really? Backed by more than a dozen agreements spanning AI, cybersecurity, fintech, semiconductors, and agriculture. The two sides cited the Defense Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, signed on November 4th, 2025, and acknowledged the growth of defense cooperation in scope and scale while reaffirming plans for a free trade agreement and for advancing the India, Middle East, European Economic Corridor, or IMEC. A day earlier, Modi had used the Knesset podium to pledge that India stands with Israel firmly and with full conviction, praising Israeli resolve during the genocide in Gaza as Netanyahu faces the ICC arrest warrant and Israel faces ICJ genocide proceedings. Yeah, fuck Modi, fuck India. Yeah, that brings up a good point. Yeah, they are the I in BRICS. So what are China and Russia and Brazil and who's the other one? Who's the S? I can't remember who the S is. Yeah, what are they doing about it? So people who say that, oh, China and Russia, they're allowing this shit to happen. So we talked about those shitty Saudi Arabians, all the ones who are in charge of stuff. Not all Saudi Arabians. I shouldn't say that. Oh, South Africa. Thank you, Wesley. Thank you. So Saudi Arabia announces maritime defense alliance to secure vital waterways. Uh-oh. Saudi Arabia and 13 other countries, that's a terrible number, 13, announced the creation of a maritime military coalition to safeguard freedom of navigation through the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Aden. In a statement published on Thursday, Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Defense said the Multinational Maritime Defense Alliance, or the MMDA, was established as a framework to strengthen collective maritime defense cooperation. The states declared their intent to protect freedom of navigation, securing international trade routes and energy supplies through the three waterways which form a strategic maritime corridor linking the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean. The move comes as the U.S.-Iran conflict has become focused on the Strait of Hormuz. The virtual closure of the route, which formerly carried about 20% of global oil and gas exports, is weighing heavily on the global economy. In a recent escalation, the Bab al-Mandeb Red Sea Gulf of Aden route has come under repeated attack from Iran-backed Houthi fighters in Yemen. We're going to talk about them in a second. The representatives of 43 countries out of 51 that were invited participated in the meeting for the establishment of the alliance. A European Union delegation was included. The Saudi ministry said the EU already has a naval protection mission, Aspids, in the Red Sea. It is not clear how the Saudi-led coalition would differ. Turkey, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, Pakistan, Djibouti, Somalia, Bangladesh, Yemen, Sudan, and the Comoros are understood to be the other signatories to the alliance. That's interesting. Now remember, just like in Lebanon and Iraq, the Houthis are not the Yemen government. They kind of run the thing though, but the official government is somebody else. It's notable that neither the United Arab Emirates nor Oman have signed up, despite having similar security objectives amid the conflict centered on Iran. They're like, we do not want to get the shit blown out of us by Iran. We are smart now. I don't know. I'm just guessing. The door remains open for other countries to accede to the coalition's charter after completing their national procedures, the Saudi ministry statement said. The participating states share a conviction that maritime security is a shared responsibility and that cooperation and coordination among states constitute the cornerstone for confronting common and transnational maritime threats, the statement concluded. It did not say what ships or aircraft each country would contribute. However, activities will include sharing intelligence, information, and operational planning, as well as conducting joint exercises and maritime operations. I don't know what's up with your icon there, Ghost Start. That is a long... It seems like, I don't know. Something's wrong there. The alliance is purely defensive in nature and does not target any state. Wink, wink, it noted. So here you have the Suez Canal over here, the Strait of Hormuz. And then you go down here. This is the Bab al-Mandeb Strait right here that Yemen controls. Saudi Arabia is recognized as a founding member of the alliance and home to its headquarters, though the statement did not specify the exact location. The Houthi rebel group in Yemen imposed a maritime blockade on Saudi Arabia last week, disrupting oil shipments diverted to the Red Sea. Since the start of the war in Iran in late February and the de facto closure of the Strait of Hormuz, Riyadh has been able to continue to export most of its oil thanks to the east-west pipeline, which connects oil refineries in the country's east to the terminal of Yanbu on the Red Sea coast, which is all well and good, but the ports are being blockaded, and that means they import 70% of their things, including food. So unless they can get that desert garden to grow, they may be in trouble. Saudi exports have to cross Bab al-Mandeb, which is located between Eritrea, Djibouti, and Yemen, whose western province facing the maritime choke point is controlled by the Houthis. That gives the armed group a strategic advantage to target ships in the Red Sea. Speaking of which, the Houthis consider imposing fees for Red Sea passage. Pay up, bitches! You want to come through these waters? You're going to have to slap down some cash. Yeah, order more Patriot missiles. Yeah. So they can just shoot them down, right? The Patriots. So stupid. Yemen's Houthis could be looking to impose fees on maritime traffic coming through the Bab al-Mandeb gateway, according to Reuters, citing regional sources. Saudi Arabia has utilized Bab al-Mandeb as an alternative to the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has blocked for U.S. allied vessels since March, following the illegal war back on February 28th. Last week, the Houthis attacked a Saudi tanker off the southern Saudi port of Jizan. I'm not going to say that. While no timeline has been set for imposing the fees, it would ramp up pressure on the Trump administration to wind down its war in Iran. Yeah, hit them in the pocketbooks. That's the best way to get to people. Hit them in the fucking pocketbooks. The Houthis are allied with Tehran, and the group is understood to have begun developing the plan after its senior representatives returned from the funeral for slain Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. While China is negotiating fee-free travel for its vessels, Western diplomats have told Reuters that overstretched international forces simply cannot be policing the Red Sea to force the rest of the traffic through. Red Sea traffic overall has not returned to pre-November 2023 levels ever since the Houthis began attacks on Israel in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. Middle East Eye reported in July that tens of billions of dollars will be spent in the coming years to bypass the Strait of Hormuz, according to experts. The UAE is building a second pipeline to the port of Fujairah, I think that's how you say it, Fujairah, to bypass the Strait of Hormuz, doubling its export capacity by 2027. Meanwhile, Iraq, the second largest producer in the oil cartel OPEC, signed a deal with Syria in July to rehabilitate a pipeline from its northern oil fields to Syria's Mediterranean coast. Middle East Eye was first to reveal the project and its U.S. backing. Saudi Arabia's east-west pipeline has emerged as a model for the region. We told you about that. It brings crude from the Gulf Coast to the kingdom's Red Sea. Riyadh is also eyeing ways to boost its capacity, further diluting its reliance on the Strait of Hormuz. The Houthis first announced a maritime embargo of Saudi Arabia on July 20th, escalating tensions with Riyadh in the Red Sea at a time when it's serving as a linchpin for global energy markets. The Houthis' armed forces said in a statement that they had imposed a maritime embargo against the criminal Saudi enemy based on the equation of an eye for an eye effective immediately. Saudi Arabia condemned the announcement, saying the Houthis were trying to deflect attention away from their economic mismanagement and public discontent. The Houthi militia dragged Yemen into the regional conflict and targeted commercial ships in the Red Sea, thereby exacerbating the suffering of the Yemeni people, preventing them from traveling and worsening the economic situation. Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry mumbled in some statement. The Houthis did not say how they plan to impose the embargo, but it comes as tensions with Riyadh were already rising over the status of flights to Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, held by the Houthis. Saudi Defense Minister Khalid bin Salman had suggested to counterparts that Riyadh had wide latitude from the Trump administration to conduct offensive strikes on the group, but other elements of the Saudi government say the kingdom's posture is solely defensive, Middle East Eye reported. Yeah, I'm sure they are solely defensive because they know if they try to strike anybody, they're going to get their asses kicked. Cooper duper, beep, beep, boop, beep, beep, boop, boop, boop. If it weren't for the war, we'd have nothing to fight over. I know, right? We always got to be scrapping. We always got to get our scrap on. Saudi Arabia and the Houthis traded fire last week for the first time in years, threatening a 2022 truce backed by the United Nations that is held despite expiring. The exchange of fire was set off when an Iranian plane arriving from Tehran attempted to land in Sana'a, challenging the status quo under which Yemen's connection with the outside world has mainly been restricted to flights to Cairo and Amman. That's it. So the Houthis are like, all right. They heard Iran talking about, cashing in the Strait of Hormuz. They're like, I wonder if we can make some money too. But they have to deal with their own government, who are just feckless. It's always these these rebel groups that seem to be the ones that are like, yeah, let's make some changes. And these governments are like, no, I'm so scared. I'm scared. I know we don't really talk much about Russia and Ukraine because this always seems kind of back and forth, but this is a bit interesting. As NATO jets scramble, as Russian missile detonates in Poland, Poland being a NATO country. World War III. NATO fighter planes have been scrambled as a Russian missile entered Polish airspace and crashed. The missile, which entered Polish airspace early on Thursday, was part of a barrage of ballistic missiles and drones launched by Russia against Ukraine overnight, killing at least 8 civilians, including children, and injuring more than 50. Concern that Russia's war on Ukraine risks entangling neighboring NATO states is on the rise. Poland is just one of several alliance members to have confronted repeated stray drones and missiles. Such incidents have become increasingly common in recent months as Russia and Ukraine have launched hundreds of projectiles at one another. NATO members, including Poland, launched F-16 jets in response to the sighting of the missile, as well as an aerial refueling aircraft and an airborne early warning plane. Spokesperson for the alliance said, NATO will continue to take all necessary measures to defend its territory, the spokesperson added. Polish authorities said the explosion had created a wide crater in the eastern village of Tarnawa Kolonia. Wow, a Polish name I can actually pronounce. That's awesome. While the incident caused no injuries or damage, it will deepen tensions between NATO and Russia as European countries fear the 4-year-old war could spill into their territory. Poland and NATO activated their air and ground defenses, according to NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, there it is, said on social media. This incident is yet another reckless act by Russia and a dangerous consequence of its war against Ukraine. Yeah, there's shit on both sides. War is hell, unfortunately. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk rushed to the site of the incident. Everything indicates that it was a Russian missile, he said. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha said on the tweeters that it was a Russian Kh-101 cruise missile that violated NATO airspace. This is yet another clear demonstration that strengthening Ukraine's air defense now is urgent and serves as a guarantee for the protection of the entire Euro-Atlantic community, he said. Stray drones and missiles have become a core focus for European countries, especially those on NATO's eastern flank. Romania has reported repeated incursions by stray drones into its airspace. On Monday, following the latest incursion of 3 drones, Bucharest summoned Russia's ambassador to complain about the repeated violations. In May, Estonia and Latvia reported drones entering their airspace from Russia. The government in Riga then collapsed over an argument on how to handle the projectiles. Wow, the whole government collapsed. That's terrible. Must not have been much of a government. Last year, Poland added deployments to its air defenses in response to the threat. It also regularly detected violations of its airspace by Russian missiles and drones. Drone incursions have, meanwhile, also led to discussions in the European Union about building a possible drone wall to shield its eastern flank. Flank reminds me of flank states. That's true. The U.S. has been at war 230 years of its 250-year existence. I wonder when the 20 years, it was probably like just months. Months, we had a few months without war, and then all of a sudden, yeah. The hell? I didn't ask for this. One moment, please. There we go. Why was that in there? Oh, I know I did that. And unfortunately, I know I was just thinking of flank steak, right? Flank steak. So good. Unfortunately, the death toll is rising in Japan after their earthquake. Japan reports at least 34 deaths after earthquake as extreme heat threatens survivors. Japanese officials reported 34 deaths in Kumamoto Prefecture following Tuesday's powerful earthquake, but they continued reviewing 9 cases to determine whether the disaster caused them. The prefectural government had confirmed 25 deaths as disaster-related by Thursday afternoon. Officials also reported 86 injuries, including 5 serious, as search teams worked at a shattered shopping mall, a damaged paper mill, and collapsed homes. The Japan the JMA Meteorological Agency. Why can I say that? Registered the July 28th earthquake at a magnitude of 7.1. It struck at approximately 4:27 p.m. local time at a depth of about only 6 miles near Kumamoto on the island of Kyushu. As previously reported, the initial earthquake damaged buildings and roads, disrupted transportation, and knocked out power across the region. Rescuers had pulled 12 people from the wreckage at the Aeon Mall in Kashima by Thursday. 7 died, according to the AP. The company said workers evacuated approximately 3,000 customers before an explosion tore through another part of the mall nearly an hour after the earthquake. Authorities were investigating whether a gas leak caused the explosion. Rescuers continued searching the partially collapsed structure for anyone still trapped. At a Nippon Paper Industries factory in Yatsushiro, a collapsed chimney and other structural damage killed 8 people. Teams rescued 10 others, and 1 person remained missing, Kumamoto's prefectural disaster team said. More than 100 small aftershocks followed the initial earthquake through Wednesday. The prefectural government counted 9,450 evacuees in 406 shelters Thursday afternoon. Nearly 19,000 homes remained without electricity, while almost 80,000 lacked running water. Other residents slept in vehicles or tents because of damaged homes and continuing aftershocks. Temperatures... Nobody asked for you. You can go away, pop-up. Little pop-up, Billy. Temperatures rose above 91 degrees Fahrenheit Thursday, and officials warned that the region could approach 104 degrees over the weekend. The heat, combined with limited water and electricity, increased the danger of heat stroke and dehydration. Japan's self-defense forces deployed approximately 4,600 personnel and transported about 300 air conditioning units for shelters and other locations. Military teams also delivered water and emergency supplies. You get the gist there. So it's ongoing pain and suffering in Japan after these earthquakes. We talked about this on the Undercurrent on Wednesday about, and this in the wake of the Venezuelan earthquakes, 7.1 and 7.5 there, and how devastating these things can be. You don't really have to look too far back in the United States history on the West Coast, damaging earthquakes there too, which is very scary. That, and we talked about this on Wednesday, like sinkholes and earthquakes, the stuff that's below, your feet, right? If a flood's coming, you could probably get out of the way, or if there's a fire, you can probably run away from that, but you can't run away from the earth moving. So I feel for the people in those areas. But that unfortunately, that's part of the cost of living there. And then they know the risks, and unfortunately these things happen. And, you just hate to see that, obviously. So that's our news block for today. We got a little bit more Iran news here in our propaganda watch. Turns out that the United States is like, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't be filming these Iranian drone strikes. Talking to our troops about it. What?
Sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publishing the same things are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
U.S. troops told not to film Iranian strikes. Why is that? Looks like an Iranian strike. What that is, let me see. Okay, I guess it's not going to let me do it. All right, well. Whoa. The U.S. military has warned troops in the Middle East against filming the aftermath of Iranian drone and missile attacks, with some personnel in Jordan reportedly told that their mobile phones could soon be confiscated to strengthen operational security. Operational security. Take a drink. That's almost like national security, but for the military. The head of propaganda CENTCOM, Admiral Brad Cooper, claimed in a July 28th letter obtained by Reuters that photos and videos published by American service members were helping Tehran improve the accuracy of their strikes. Cooper complained that journalists and online open source intelligence researchers were effectively conducting battle damage assessments for Tehran. Iran knows the weapons were fired. However, their forces do not know if they missed by 50 meters, hit an empty tarmac, or successfully struck a crowded facility, Cooper wrote. Detailed lists, descriptions, and analysis of what was hit, openly published by news outlets, are essentially performing Iran's battle damage assessment, or BDA, for them free of charge. Well, here's a fun little tip there, Brad Cooper, not the guy, the Hollywood guy. Maybe get you and your forces the fuck out of there and stop murdering children. How about that? One video cited by Cooper was recorded using Meta smart glasses during a deadly Iranian missile and drone attack on Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan on July 17th. The footage shows U.S. troops running for shelter and entering a bunker as warning sirens blared. Separate close-range footage from the same night appeared to capture multiple ballistic missiles directly striking the Jordanian facility. The Pentagon later confirmed that 3 American service members had been killed in the attack. 2 sources told Reuters that troops stationed in Jordan had been informed that their phones would be taken away in the coming days. A third said broader restrictions were being considered across the region, although CENTCOM described Cooper's letter as merely a general security reminder. While the Pentagon's stated concern is that Iran may take advantage of the footage, the restrictions would also make it considerably harder for the public to independently assess the true impact of Iranian attacks. Yeah, you don't want those normies, those civilians knowing. The possible phone seizures would give Washington greater control over the flow of information. CENTCOM routinely publishes short, curated clips of American aircraft taking off, also known as propaganda material, missiles being launched, and Iranian targets being struck. Meanwhile, first-hand recordings of Iranian attacks are rare, as allies hosting U.S. bases in the region have also imposed strict bans on filming and penalties for violations. Such videos have contradicted the limited picture presented in official statements, which routinely emphasize successful interceptions or describe Iranian attacks as unsuccessful without detailing image, casualties, or equipment losses. In other words, you're not letting us lie about this when you tell the truth. Concerns about transparency have grown since the U.S. Department of War quietly updated its database over the weekend to show that 18 service members had been killed and 624 wounded since the war began on February 28th. Lawmakers have demanded more information about damage to radar systems, aircraft hangars, barracks, and other infrastructure at U.S. bases. CENTCOM, the Baghdad Bob of 2026. Nothing to see here. Everything's fine. Don't be showing video of the truth. What's wrong with you people? Huh? What happened? How's everybody doing? We all right? We're good? You all right? Almost out of coffee. Sad face. Again, this is more water, wet, sky blue kind of obvious reporting, but multi-billionaire Musk plans major U.S. Republican midterm spending push. They should say again. Him the chainsaw. Elon Musk, the world's richest person, is preparing a major spending push to help Republicans retain control of Congress in November's midterm elections, Axios reported yesterday, July 30th. The reported splurge will revive the political operation that made Musk the biggest financial backer of Trump's stunning return to power in the 2024 presidential election. Pretty sure AIPAC did most of the heavy lifting there. The tech multi-billionaire plans to reactivate America PAC, the political organization that spent more than $260 million supporting Trump's bid, according to people familiar with the effort cited by Axios. The group is expected to focus on door-to-door canvassing, digital advertising, and direct mail aimed at mobilizing conservative voters who are less likely to participate in non-presidential elections. Don't forget those fake AI videos. You know, those things, you know, that the people have been passing around. Musk has not specified how much he intends to spend. America PAC did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The intervention could provide a significant boost to Republicans as Trump's weak approval ratings, concerns over the economy, and opposition to the Iran war threaten the party's narrow House and Senate majorities. Republican committees and allied groups already hold a large financial advantage over Democrats, while Trump's MAGA Incorporated organization has amassed hundreds of millions of dollars. This is one reason why people don't take politics seriously, is because of all the money that's being spent. Corporations are people. Remember that? Citizens United? It was pretty bad before that, and now it's just like, you know, what these big money interests are not, like I said, not only just like doing all the regular stuff, but in the case of Thomas Massey, they're you know, putting out these fake AI videos, and you're going to see more of that. And that's the thing. They'll put these videos out. It'll hurt whatever candidate it's going against. And then later they'll say, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And they'll, you know, get a little slap on the wrist. They'll pay a fine, and that's it. Meanwhile, that candidate got fucked over because of some illegal shit that, or maybe it's not illegal, but it should be. We've been covering this on the Undercurrent too on Wednesdays. If you're not watching the Undercurrent, shame on you. Pox upon your house. No, I'm kidding. You can, the link is down below in the description. if you want to subscribe. But ABC News, I have no love lost for the networks, but they are getting hammered, and not by the right people. So ABC News says FCC is carrying out intimidation campaign to shape coverage. The news outlet ABC has accused the FCC of using the threat of canceled broadcast licenses as part of an intimidation campaign against the media critical of Trumpy. In a court filing on Thursday, the Disney-owned company highlighted the FCC's decision to conduct an early license review of 8 ABC stations. That move, it says, serves as a warning to other outlets whose coverage Trump deems unfavorable. The retaliation against ABC is a signal to every media company in the country: accommodate the administration's view of what news coverage should look like or pay the price, ABC wrote in its filings. I just want to comment here saying, like, yeah, this, of course, right, intimidating the media is no bueno, but these networks, including CNN and MSNBC at the time, of course, Fox News, they all propped up Trump, right? They kept showing empty podiums, waiting for Trump. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders had like thousands and thousands of people at his rallies. And I have no love lost for Bernie. I'm very disappointed in him, and I think he's part of the mix now, unfortunately. But at that time, the ABC was part of that. So just throwing that in there. That yes, this is bad, but these aren't saints for sure. It added that the FCC is seeking a media industry too fearful of official reprisal to report the news freely. Since Trump took office for a second term, critics have accused his administration of targeting news outlets that the president dislikes. In December, Trump filed a $10 billion lawsuit against the BBC, and he is also pursuing defamation lawsuits against the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal for $15 billion and $10 billion, respectively. Just last week, the Department of Justice withdrew subpoenas that sought to compel New York Times journalists to testify about their reporting on Trump's new Air Force One plane and what safety measures it may be lacking. Supporters of press freedom have warned that such aggressive action could be used as a means of dampening free speech as protected under the First Amendment, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. In ABC's case, the broadcasting licenses for the stations in question were not due for renewal until October of 2028. But in April, FCC Chair Brendan Carr ordered an early review, something the agency has not done in more than 50 years. The FCC said the decision, announced several days after Trump demanded that ABC fire late-night television host Jimmy Kimmel, was prompted by an investigation into whether the company's diversity policies amounted to unlawful discrimination. Critics argue that such inquiries have been a frequent instrument for exerting pressure on companies at odds with Trump's priorities. Trump himself has spoken in open terms about his desire to see sources of critical coverage curtailed, calling on regulators to revoke licenses of outlets whose coverage is critical of the government and its allies. In November, the president said the FCC should revoke ABC's licenses after a correspondent asked Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman a critical question, calling it insubordinate. How dare you ask questions of the guy who murders journalists? In July, Trump delivered a speech on election integrity that several broadcasters, including ABC, did not air on their main channels, opting instead for online streaming and other forms of news coverage. Trumpy, however, lashed out at those news channels in his speech, accusing them of participating in election malfeasance. Fraud like this should mean a revocation of their licenses, he said. Trumpy has previously described coverage critical of his war on Iran as a potential form of treason, a crime that can carry the death penalty in the United States. From its earliest days, this administration has made clear its intent to punish ABC for its news coverage and to create a chilling effect on ABC and others. Again, you created this monster. You helped create this monster. So, like I said, this should not be happening at all. Obviously, trying to control the media like that. But the media itself basically is kind of already controlled, Meanwhile, let's head over to Kneebones. How dare you? How dare you? It's all right. We're fine. Don't worry about it. This is over in the UK. Yeah, this is UK. So Supreme Court will allow appeal hearing over Palestine action ban. The co-founder of Palestine Action has been granted permission to challenge the Home Office's decision to ban the Direct Action Group as a terrorist organization. The UK proscribed the group in July of last year. Since then, its co-founder, Huda Amori, has fought to overturn the decision. In June, the Court of Appeal quashed a high court ruling that found the ban unlawful. A 5-strong panel of judges ruled that the government's move to ban the group struck a fair balance between the individual's rights to freedom of speech and assembly and the interests of national security. Take a drink. Sippity-doo-dah. Following the ruling, Amari said she would fight proscription all the way to the Supreme Court and European Court of Human Rights to overturn one of the most extreme attacks on free speech and the right to protest in modern British history. On Thursday, the Supreme Court granted Amari permission to appeal the decision. The case is expected to be heard in the autumn, or the fall, the autumn. The ban implemented in July last year made membership of or support for the Direct Action Group a criminal offense punishable by up to 14 years in prison. Since then, some 3,500 people have been arrested for allegedly supporting Palestine Action. The decision comes as more than 1,500 people facing terrorism charges in connection with Palestine Actions. Protests had their cases listed for hearings in London on Thursday. London's Metropolitan Police said that over 70 people were arrested outside Westminster Magistrates Court. So good on them. Palestine Action getting their day in front of the Supreme Court in the UK. We go down to Argentina now, and Javier Milei. Oh boy, yeah. This is some fun stuff. So Milei seeks to expel foreigners accused of anti-Argentina hate speech. Hello, Pot. It's a kettle. Says you're black. Look at this guy. Jesus Christ. He looks like the fucking devil. Argentine President Javier Milei has called for restrictions on foreigners who express hate towards Argentina under a new decree that requires approval from the country's parliament. The measure published by the presidency on Thursday would allow authorities to prevent entry or expel foreigners accused of having spread or incited hate messages against Argentina or its people. Which sounds good on paper, but what this really means is quashing protests too. They'll call that hate speech too, even if it's their own people. Milei said the decree was introduced in response to recent displays of hostility against the Argentine Republic and Argentines. The decree states that it does not affect constitutionally protected rights related to political, academic, or ideological expression. Wink, 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 wink. The move comes amid tensions following criticism directed at Argentina in connection with recent events involving the country's national football team and international reactions surrounding its World Cup campaign. On Sunday, Milei criticized Brazil, Mexico, and the U.S. Democratic Party over an anti-Argentine campaign. His comments appeared to refer to criticism surrounding the Argentine national team's performance in the World Cup final. FIFA is currently investigating the conduct of several Argentina players following their defeat to Spain, including allegations of assault and unsporting behavior. The global football governing body is also examining an incident after Argentina's 2-1 semifinal victory over England, when players displayed a banner reading "Las Malvinas son Argentinas," the Falklands are Argentine. The decree will require parliamentary approval before it can take full effect. Meanwhile, Milei has sparked a diplomatic dispute with Brazil after launching attacks against President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, the Brazilian judiciary, and the country's political system during a right-wing campaign event in Sao Paulo. The remarks prompted Brazil to recall its ambassador to Argentina, Julio Batelli, for consultations in Brasilia, with officials stating that the move was a formal diplomatic protest over comments they said targeted Brazil's institutions, democracy, and people. Speaking at an event launching the presidential campaign of right-wing candidate Flavio Bolsonaro, Milei criticized Brazil's left-wing leadership and warned against what he called the Lula risk ahead of the country's upcoming elections. The Argentine president also criticized Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes over decisions involving former President Jair Bolsonaro, whom Milei described as his unjustly imprisoned friend. They're both scumbags. The diplomatic dispute marks a new escalation between Buenos Aires and Brasilia, with Brazilian officials accusing Milei of interfering in domestic affairs. However, the recall of the ambassador does not amount to a complete rupture in relations between the two neighboring countries, at least not yet. Oh, God, really? Michigan lawmakers singing. The hell? Ain't nobody told you I'll do that shit? Stop. Lawmakers singing and dancing to Long Live Israel. Yeah. Which is kind of wild because there's a large Muslim contingent in Michigan too. And plus you've got that house race between Stevens and El Sayed. We told you about she was, of course, she's big time Zionist, super Zionist, and was spreading lies about how the GOP opponent would rather face him than her. Although I think he's up by like 15 points in that race too. So she should probably just shut her big yapper. Finally, in our propaganda watch of fun, if you use ChatGPT, guess what? It's been Zionized. As James Lee was going to tell us here right now.
Is Israel committing a genocide? No. Just a straight up no. PSA time, everybody. You should never, ever trust an AI chatbot again, because similar to how mainstream media has been controlled for decades, the new AI frontier is now being conquered at lightning speed. And by who? You know who. Dropsite News, bombshell reporting. Israel is paying millions of dollars to train AI chatbots how to talk about Gaza. It's working. Former Trump campaign manager Brad Parscale is overseeing an operation posting hundreds of blog posts on behalf of Israel with the goal of infiltrating artificial intelligence. They literally told us last year that they were going to do this, and lo and behold, they are actually doing it. And by it, I mean influencing or poisoning LLMs like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, many others to spit out their version of the truth when it comes to questions about Israel and Palestine. A reminder, this is what the Israeli official told the world last year as far as their roadmap to improve their reputation amongst the international community. Take a listen.
All these issues? The really cool thing about AI is that while it can become a great ally for our enemies, if we act early, it can be exactly the opportunity that we need. After missing the boat with social media, AI is now becoming the dominant source of information, the main source of information. People trust AI more than anything else. They trust AI more than social media. They turn to chatbots like ChatGPT and Gemini instead of using Google, and young people use these bots instead of Google in very, very, very large numbers. So this is becoming the main source of information, okay? And so when I say this, I still find Jewish people being discouraged. They say, oh, but Wikipedia is already so anti-Semitic and social media is so anti-Semitic. Why bother? The AI just learns from all of this data. So, whatever, not much we can do, but that's not true. Because over the past 2 years, the AI companies have been moving towards alignment. So instead of the algorithms sort of honestly representing what's in the data, we're finding that these chatbots and the text-to-image models are increasingly showing us exactly what the companies want us to see, okay? So it's becoming intentional, which means that instead of trying to control the whole world and trying to somehow manage what's happening in this big blob of Wikipedia and social media, we can go directly to the companies with clear technical and advocacy solutions. So for the first time, there is a path to correcting the digital world.
There's a path to, quote unquote, correcting the digital world. And what was that comment about controlling the world? Was she supposed to have said that? I guess sometimes you just get so jazzed that the truth just vomits out. So according to DropSite, since October, former Trump campaign manager Brad Parscale has been quietly overseeing an operation posting hundreds of blog posts on behalf of Israel. By the way, Brad Parscale is the same guy that currently runs the Charlie Kirk show. So I think that might explain a lot about what's going on over there. This is one of the websites that he runs. It's called paxpoint.org, and it's supposed to showcase the narrative that Israel is a peaceful country. For example, this article, Beyond War, Israel still seeks enduring regional peace as the end goal. But the thing is, nobody, or specifically no human, is meant to ever read those articles. Quote, the key intended audience of these websites is not concerned Americans, it's not even humans. Most of these sites only average a few hundred unique visitors per month. Instead, Parscale and his firm, Clock Tower X, created them as part of a $46.5 million contract with the Israeli government to try to influence artificial intelligence-powered chatbots, tools like ChatGPT or Claude. But China! Okay, so this is the official FAR registration document for Clock Tower X LLC, declaring that they are in fact a registered agent for the state of Israel. And one of their explicit tasks is to deploy websites and content to deliver GPT framing results on GPT conversations. So, following orders, Clock Tower X has indeed created a bunch of fake but official-looking blogs and fact-checking websites with the sole purpose of training AI chatbots. DropSite compiled 10 of these websites, the first being paxpoint.org. That's the one we looked at that was supposedly dedicated to showcasing the narrative that Israel is a peaceful nation. You have allyvia.org, website dedicated to strengthening U.S.-Israel alliance. Factsignal.org. The mission is to, quote, prove that Hamas terrorist designation reflects global consensus and undeniable evidence of violence, not conspiracy. Cogniteur.org, website claims to be a research and education platform dedicated to exploring how extremist groups such as Hamas operate. Justorium.org, website dedicated to arguing that Israel's military actions in Gaza, quote, follow international law. And then there is also culturavia.org, website focused on celebrating cultural ties between the U.S. and Israel. Compassionpulse.org, website dedicated to sharing stories, data, eyewitness accounts of how Israel protects citizens, delivers humanitarian aid, and upholds moral values shared with the United States. Econora.org, website dedicated to highlighting U.S.-Israel trade relationship. Innovascope, what are these? I mean, these are like GPT created names. Come on, let's be real. Innovascope.org, website dedicated to highlighting U.S.-Israel technology partnership. FeedingYouFiction.com, website featuring videos that claim footage coming out of Gaza is staged and denying famine. Like I said, would not be shocked if a chatbot came up with all those ridiculous fake sounding website names. And again, these are not real think tanks, they're not real papers, they're not real research organizations, nor do they provide any form of legitimate fact-checking. In fact, at the bottom of each website, it says, this material is distributed by Clock Tower X LLC on behalf of the state of Israel. AKA, these are all propaganda websites produced by a foreign country with the sole purpose of influencing American public perception about that particular country. And unfortunately, it is working in terms of infiltrating these AI chatbots. Quote, according to disinformation experts who reviewed a DropSite analysis of chatbot queries and training data, tens of millions of Americans who use chatbots are increasingly likely to receive answers manipulated by Parscale on behalf of the Israeli government. Axios reported that Parscale's team says it's seeing success with popular AI incorporating information from these sites into their responses. I hope people are starting to realize that the truth shouldn't need a $50 million campaign, okay? People tell the truth for free. It's the liars who have to be paid. Dropsite did a test where they asked, is it beneficial for the US to enhance military cooperation with Israel? And the answer was just yes. And that's such a critical question right now because Netanyahu is literally in the White House this week, probably telling Trump to do just that. And also that we need to bomb Iran again, or we need to bomb Lebanon. And it would be so good if we could be integrated militarily. We just have to convince the American people. And that's the part I don't think is actually working. A quick update, the House of Representatives did pass the provision that would integrate parts of the US and Israeli militaries, the supply chain, various technologies and things like that. But now it is somewhat stalled in the Senate. And now the leaders of both parties are telling us that it's Jew hatred if you oppose violating our nation's sovereignty. But I think Americans have been very much awakened on this issue across all ideologies. And let me just tell you from experience, once you unplug from the matrix, there ain't no plugging back in, okay? Even CNN is quite shocked by this. Take a listen.
These races has been Israel, how supportive Democratic candidates want to be of Israel and U.S. aid to Israel. Over the summer, it's been largely seen as a Democratic issue, but it might not just be a party thing. With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Eaton. When we're talking about Israel's favorability in the United States, in general, there's some big changes.
There are some absolutely huge, mammoth changes, generational changes that we're talking about. I think there are a lot of Republicans, we'll be able to run against these anti-Israeli Democrats once we hit the general election because the general electorate feels very differently from the Democratic base. But the general electorate, look at these numbers on Israel, the net favorability. They're all negative. They're all negative. Ipsos, minus 10 points. Fox, minus 11 points. Marquette University Law School Law poll. Look at that, minus 20 points. Pew Research Center, minus 23 points. Negative, 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 negative. And Gallup earlier this year was also negative. We're not just talking about the Democratic base anymore. We're talking about the general electorate as well. The general electorate has turned against Israel. This is not just a left issue. It is an American issue when it comes to opinions on Israel.
What's the trend line here?
What's the trend line here? The trend line is unbelievable. Look at the trend line here. Compare this to Donald Trump's first term. At this point in Donald Trump's first terms, Israel's average net favorability.
Wow.
You go back here. Look at this. It was plus 51 points. Wow, Johnny says. Wow, Johnny says, because this is wow. Plus 51. It's minus 16 points in the average poll now. That is what, a 67-point shift against Israel in just 8 years. Israel used to be a consensus issue in American politics, and that was a pro-Israeli position. Now the consensus has actually shifted, and now when it comes to general electorate, it is a minus. Israel is now seen negatively, and we're seeing it in poll after poll.
And that, my friends, is how we win, okay? We don't look to AI chatbots or fact checkers for the truth. We look out for one another. I, for example, see it as my duty to inform you guys the best I can, and I want you guys to pass it on because it creates this kind of unstoppable network effect, which is why they don't want us talking to each other. I mean, they're literally still running psyops to try to make us believe that ChatGPT is a better therapist than humans, which is just an obvious lie. The way for us to win the information war is to connect with people we know, our friends, our family, our community, to bring up these important issues. Yes, I know sometimes talking about politics is annoying. We hate to be that guy. Well, not me. I love being that guy at a party. Hey, what do you guys think about Epstein or Israel or this or that? Those are conversations that I'm always having. And right now, I think having these conversations is quite literally about saving our country from a foreign invasion. And this is a battle that we absolutely can win if we are all united. That is it for me today. Let me know what you guys are seeing out there. Is this something that you guys notice? How are people reacting to this kind of pro-Israel psyop? Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, if you want to support my journalism, you can go to my website, 5149jameslee.com, sign in to become a member. There's also an option to give a one-time donation, no subscription necessary. You can also buy some awesome merch. But if not, no worries at all. Please just do me a big favor and give this video a thumbs up, hype it, share it, subscribe to the channel, turn on that notification bell so you can be the first to know when my next video drops. As always, Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.
We have taken resources and redistributed it really towards the LLMs, and working with OpenAI, with Alphabet, with Anthropic, with Meta, with Microsoft. We are working with them now to train the LLMs.
I want to, let's see, let me go back to
these anti-Israeli Democrats.
I want to show you something. I thought this was interesting here. I don't know if you could see this, but CNN, one of the biggest propagandists in the United States, has the Fauci prediction tracker at the bottom here. And I think James Lee did a video about Fauci, and I can't remember what the other one is called, one of the bigger ones, but how it influences public opinion on people, right? They say, oh, there's a certain percentage chance that this is going to happen or this is going to happen, especially like in politics. So they've got it on there. They've got their own little, they've got the Fauci prediction ticker down there, which I found to be like, oh, CNN. Yes, you're telling us about how there's a swing, but we also got the Fauci thing down there too. So good stuff from James Lee as always there. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, if you use Chanda, you use these AI LMMs, just be careful, right? Don't put personal information in there, obviously. And if you're looking for like opinions or something, forget it. It's just going to straight up regurgitate what a lot of these, like he said, these propaganda sites are telling you, right? So, you know, sometimes people use these things. I sometimes use an AI for like technical stuff. If I'm trying to fix something on my computer, I'll ask it certain questions. It's been very helpful. So I use it as a tool like that. But anything else, I just want nothing to do with that. We have, as always, we have our mutual aid folks. The links are all down below in the description on all our channels here. If you can donate or share out the links, we truly would appreciate it. And as always, if you know somebody who's in need of mutual aid, if they have a GoFundMe or any kind of fundraising apparatus going on, please, if you could email me at extrabulla@gmail.com. We'll be sure to put them in the mix. They got a couple of updates. I know Cowboy Kitty is telling us about his sister-in-law, Natalia. I think she's currently in court. Not today, but she is still fighting, getting deported, booted out of the country. And our buddy Yoninah, she lost her cat, Empress, somewhere in Wrigleyville. I believe, I don't know if the cat's dead or alive, but I know she's very precious to Yoninah, and we appreciate Yoninah for her support on our shows and other shows as well. And her link is down below too, if you want to help her out. She's still struggling with homelessness issues and whatnot, and she's a good person. So if you can help out, we really do appreciate that. Tonight, we have a little special Undercurrent with Laine P and me and some of our pals in the space. Scheduled to appear are Ed Heller, Willie Bragg, Game.Film, Jamar Jabari, and Marcus Cage. We just passed 100 subscriptions, or subscribers, I should say, on YouTube, and we appreciate all the support for that show. It's a great news you can use kind of show. We have very informative guests that come on, and much like this community, we have a very good community that supports us, and we appreciate providing information to them. So join us tonight. That's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Should be a good time. It's just going to hang out and talk about things, maybe talk about each people's are doing on their channels. It's good collaborating with these guys. They're good people, and they do good things in this space too, especially the folks that provide information for everybody. So come see us tonight for that. Should be a good time. And then tomorrow night, it is the Secret Show with sillies and science and so much more, and crocus references and nips and Willie Bragg pictures and chickens and fun stuff. And don't forget to stay around for the after credits. There's a fun little video we're going to play for you. Should be fun for that. So that's going to be 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Also, a reminder, after the show, probably around 3 o'clock Eastern, the Substack will be up with all the links to all the stories we did today. All that will be in there for you. If you want to, some of those we didn't get to read all of the stories. So if you want to read the full versions, you can do that. Also, if you want to donate to this show, we appreciate that too. You can become a Patreon, get your name and lights at the beginning of the programs, and helps us out, helps build up everything that goes that you guys donate goes back into the show. And if you can't, all the donation links are down below. If you can't donate, if you can subscribe and share out those links, that will be very much appreciated, whichever platform you're watching this on at the moment. And also, speaking of Substack, we do a live program. We do stream live on Substack. So if you're like, I'm not going to watch this on YouTube or Rumble or Facebook, if you want to watch it on Substack, it's ExtraBulla.substack.com. You can watch all the shows there. So, and as always, much appreciate everybody. Love each and every one of you. We do this show for you guys, so that you can be informed. You don't have to worry about the he said, she said bullshit, or I can't believe what AOC is doing. Fuck AOC. Who gives a fuck, right? Let's talk about the news that's actually going on and what's affecting you. So finally, today, fun stuff. Everybody jokes about the marmot that fucked up CERN, and now we're in some sort of alternative universe or whatever. Well, apparently marmots have their own OnlyFans channel, as marmot researchers raising funds with Only Marms page on OnlyFans. So, if you're into marmots, and you're a little freaky, yeah, there's that too. Researchers studying marmots in Colorado are compensating for the loss of federal funding by showing off the animals on OnlyFans. Daniel Bloomstein, a professor at the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology at the University of Cal Los Angeles, that would be UCLA, is the head of a Colorado marmot research program that has been running since 1962, but is now in danger due to the loss of research grants that were canceled last year by Trumpy no likey the marmots. Bloomstein and his team at the Rocky Mountain Biological Laboratory created an OnlyFans page called Only Marms, where fans can see daily photos and videos of wild marmots and leave tips to help support the ongoing research. It's going to be G-rated. but the marmots probably aren't going to be wearing clothes, right? So, I mean, how G-rated can it be? And we're not going to sexualize this. Somebody's going to sexualize it, but they're not. Because, you know, people be freaky. Blumstein told the New York Times, "We're just going to have fun with sharing." The page, which promises unfiltered, yellow-bellied marmot content from the Rockies, was created and is maintained by first-year master's student Emily Renke, who has been with the program since 2022. That's it. Again, join us this evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, for our Undercurrent special prime time edition. And then tomorrow night for the Secret Show at 11 p.m. Eastern. I'll be back after that with Laine P for the regular Undercurrent show Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Yes, a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. And I'll also our new ExtraBulla live show Wednesday night. My buddy Robert Moore, the astronomer guy, kind of astrophysicist lab dude, he's going to be coming back on, but he's going to be talking about his fiction, sci-fi fantasy fiction book that he wrote. And we'll be talking about how people, first time authors, can get off the ground with things that they need to do. And I think it'll be a fun show to bring you. I really enjoyed doing the show with Lucy from Blue Moon Red Wine this past Wednesday. Very informative. No paw picks for you, Cooper, you freak of nature. Lucy with some eye-opening revelations about some of the independent so-called independent journalists in this space. So clips are coming out, so you can see those, and if you want to recap and watch the regular show, please feel to do so. Always that goddamn sneeze. It was a good show. I enjoyed it, and we had a pretty good turnout for that, and it's done pretty well on YouTube. So if you want to rewatch that, check out the channels to see that. Other than that, I'll see you tonight. Have fun. Happy Friday. Happy last day of July. We'll see you soon. Peace.
This is City Alpha 5. Woo!
Soon.